Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I can't believe we're finally here together. Welcome to the Bridge and Tunnel Brewery fundraiser benefiting the American Cancer Society. It's amazing how COVID has forced us to use technology to do so many new things and innovative things. Like, whoever thought we'd be doing a beer tasting and a brewery tour on our computers from home on a Thursday night? I'm excited to be here. I'm Valerie Berger. I am the chair of the Long Island Board of Advisors for the American Cancer Society. I've been a volunteer for ACS for about 5 years now. And as an oncology nurse, I am dedicated to and passionate about treating cancer and preventing cancer. I know that fundraising is something that has taken a great hit during COVID, and I wanted to try to help and have fun at the same time. It didn't hurt that our regional board chair challenged our local boards to see who could raise the most money. And so this is what I came up with. David, if you're out there, thanks for giving me a fun project to work on. There will be a donation link on the bottom of the screen that will go directly to this event if you are so inclined, and we appreciate your inclinations. The link is bit.ly/beer for ACS. Throughout the night at the brewery, I assure you they are taking all COVID precautions and following all CDC guidelines. As they say, it takes a village, right? So I need to thank my brother, Michael, for introducing me to and cultivating my taste for beer through Bridge and Tunnel Brewery. I met Rich and Lisa and tasted their vanilla porter, and I have been spoiled since. The design of their cans is also charming. I heard that the Bone Orchard label with the sugar skull was designed by their daughter. A great way to involve the kids. I never liked an IPA until I had one of their aptly named beers that came out last spring called, well, you can say it, I can't, but it was for the virus. You can see it for yourself. This is definitely worth a trip to their tap room. Bring a growler or buy yourself some cans. You will definitely want to bring some home with you. I need to recognize the man behind the screen, Victor Labazetta, my own personal Apple engineer and best friend, AKA husband. Everything you see tonight is because of his expertise behind the curtain and his dedication to our work and to my passions. His amazing buddies, Tim and Tom. You've enjoyed Tom's music in the pre-show, and Tim is operating the camera tonight. On his birthday, I might add. Happy birthday, Tim. So many people help us to give back. A little bit later, I'll introduce you to our partners at the American Cancer Society, who will explain why all this is so very important. In thanking people, you always leave someone out. So if it was you, I'm sorry. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I know my mom is out there, and this may be my Academy Award moment. So Mom, I love you. On behalf of our Long Island board, I hope you enjoy the night as much as I've enjoyed planning it for you. Let's take a look at the state of craft brewing in New York City. Today, a wave of craft brewers are revitalizing the New York beer scene and taking their industry back. Beer Boom, the documentary, chronicles the modern-day David and Goliath story of the craft beer explosion and the people who are risking everything to make it happen. Let's
The craft beer industry is growing at a rate right now that, a lot of brewers are getting into this and they're like, okay, I've always wanted to brew beer for a living, so I'm just going to open a brewery, and a lot of people are coming, I'm going to make a lot of money, and that's not really what's happening. You need to open a brewery and you need to start small.
We're taking the beer industry back, and we're kind of going against the grain of, frankly, the way a lot of industries go in the United States.
Pitfalls of running a business are many.
Here in New York, space alone is very expensive, and it can become a very costly place to start and run a business.
We're kind of returning to our rightful place as a center of brewing. Why New York? I mean, it's the hardest place to settle down. It's the most expensive place to settle down. The competition is extremely fierce. But all those reasons, also the reason why I did it, because I'm a very competitive guy. I have very big ambitions. I want to be the best at what I do.
What maybe other breweries might spend on maybe a delivery truck, I built this whole space out. I've said to them before, what do you guys think? Is this too much? But my girls will say, are you crazy? You're doing this for the family. This is our family business.
I know tons of female homebrewers here in Brooklyn. It's definitely more prevalent out west to see women in beer, and I think it's going to change, honestly, as we start to see the breweries pick up in New York.
Craft beer drinkers seek out new craft breweries, and for them it becomes a special kind of relationship.
There's a lot of talk about bubbles bursting, saturation points.
I don't think there's merit for fear. I think I welcome all the breweries for this. The more breweries there are, the better we all get, the better life tastes.
You know what I mean?
What a great story. Thank you, Eric, for sharing your documentary with us and your passion for the craft brewing world. Let's go to the Bridge and Tunnel Brewery and see what's happening. I'd like to introduce you to my brother, Mike Bars, and our brewmaster, Rich Castagna.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody from the American Cancer Society. We could not be happier to be here tonight with you. My name's Mike Bars. I'm Valerie Berger's older brother. That says a lot right there. And she approached me a couple of months back to ask what we might be able to do to help the American Cancer Society raise funds in this really tough time when funds are going pretty much only to COVID relief. And thank goodness they did, but cancer doesn't go away. And so I spoke to my buddy here, Rich Castagna, asked him if there's something that we could do at the brewery here to help the cause. And so here we are tonight. We thank you very much for your support. And what we want to do is tell you a little bit about the brewery, a little bit about the history of Rich. You saw, I understand, the trailer of Beer Boom Boom, the movie, which is a really excellent documentary that goes through the recent history of craft beer in New York City, focusing primarily on Rich's journey from being a craft brewer at home to being a garage brewer and to building his own place. So with that, please let me introduce my friend, Rich Castagna, the owner and master brewer here at Bridge and Tunnel Brewery.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for supporting Valerie's cause, and yeah, welcome to the brewery. We've to give you a little quick history. We've been a brewery since 2012. We literally started in a one-car garage in a backyard, one town over, on a little system that was all self-built. That took me 3 years to build because we had 3 very young children, and I needed an outlet, and was a home brewer for a bunch of years before that. So then I said, I'm going to start brewing a bigger system. And 3 years after that, it was completed. And then next thing you know, it got housed in a garage, and then we got licensing. And it's been just this whole process of just following the path. And here we are now in Ridgewood in a 2,300 square foot space. And I'm currently building out a second space, another tap room upstate, which will be a total of 8,800 square feet. And building it all myself all over again on repurposed, reclaimed equipment and materials, which is detailed in the documentary. And shout out to Eric and Andrew who produced the documentary. Those guys, I met them probably about 6 years ago because they literally were looking for people to interview, and they made us the protagonist of the story. It's not only about us, it's about the other craft breweries as well. But our building approach is different than everybody else out there. So that's how we became kind of the beginning, middle, and the end. So we'll hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the documentary.
And if anytime you want to come and visit Rich is here all the time. And Eric, one of the producers of Beer Boom, is our Sunday bartender. And in fact, several years ago, my daughter left me on a Sunday afternoon we were supposed to have lunch, and she said, "Dad, I got to go." I had nothing to do. I got on the L train, ended up here at Bridge and Tunnel Brewery, sat right over there for a beer. It was one of the best beers I had had, and I've gone to a lot of craft breweries. And was one of the best bartenders that I ever been with Eric. And Rich happened to be in the back. And I just started talking about the beer and the craft, and Rich and I hit it off. And now I'm Rich's apprentice brewmaster, and sometimes I help him on some of the legal stuff as well because I'm a lawyer. So we're going to take you through what the different beers are that you may have purchased, and we'll get to that, towards the end of the show. Before that, we'll take you through the craft brewing process, what it is to actually get that beer into that can. But right now, let's head back to Val, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks so much, Mike and Rich. I'd like to hear more, if you can tell us about how the beer gets in the can.
Good.
They'd like to hear more, like how does the beer get to the can?
Oh, okay. We're still on.
Oh, okay.
Wait, okay. So what's the question?
How does the beer get to the cans?
Oh, okay. Well, we brew the beer, and then at the end, we
Tell them they
either
have to fill until
eggs
7:30.
or can. The canning system.
They have another
actually,
20 minutes to talk.
They call a mobile canner in, but I built a canning rig, and we do all our own canning in house. So it gives us a lot of extra flexibility, and it gives us the opportunity to produce a lot of styles out of a small space. So
Ask him to talk about his equipment.
We have in cans available, to go. Usually anywhere from 8 to 15 styles, which is kind of unheard of for such a small space.
So basically, the brewing process after the grains are selected for whatever style of beer you're brewing, the sugars are extracted from those grains and placed into a boiling kettle, and it's either a 200 or a 300 gallons boil that we have in this system here, and so then the beer is boiled for a certain period of time, depending again on the recipe. Hops may be added in the boil, hops may not, and other things may be added in the boil. And then from the boil kettle, the beer is cooled, and it's eventually transported through pipes into a fermenter, where the beer will sit for, again, up to a week or more. Yeast is added, other nutrients or flavors are added perhaps in the fermenter. It goes from the fermenter, again, through pipes into usually kegs, and where it's stored for a while.
But because of COVID, everything is cans right now, which is interesting because we're actually dealing with a can shortage right now.
Right, nationwide, there's a can shortage.
Yeah.
So as craft beer increases in popularity throughout the country, and then COVID really changed the dynamic of every brewer's model.
Yeah.
Went overnight. It went from primarily being a keg distribution system that goes to restaurants, and then a tap brewing system into cans for everybody.
Right.
And so there was an immediate can shortage, and it was a real problem during COVID to get the cans that you needed. Yeah. Not to mention the labels as well. So once it goes into the can is just a silver can, and then a label comes. You have to get the labels, and sometimes there's a shortage of labels as well because everybody wants their labels, immediately.
Yeah.
So you have to have really good connections for both cans and labels. And then once the beer gets into the can, then the label goes on the can, and then often the can will then need to sit for a few days to ferment again in the can, and then it comes to you through a distributor.
Another question for Rich is how has the pandemic affected you?
Oof. The question is, how has the pandemic affected us? It's been a crazy roller coaster. We started off, we ran a pretty dynamic tap room right up until the last week before they shut down last March. And we used to do canning, but we weren't really serious canners. Like at any time that you came here, maybe we would have 1 or 2 styles in cans that people could take to go. And I knew within that first week that if we didn't pivot very quickly, we were gonna be, we would be sunk within a couple of weeks. Within a month, 2 months, we'd be done. So we switched gears, and I revamped my canning rig, and we ended up pounding out one style after another. We do all the in-house. We do the labels in-house. And then we went from having maybe 4 styles to then the next week we had 6, then we had 8, then we had 12. And then we were doing deliveries, and deliveries were like it saved us. The deliveries and takeaway saved us for the first 4 months. And then once the summer hit, then people started coming outside, and then we were doing outdoor seating. And then that took off. So the deliveries dropped off, outdoor seating took off, and then we actually at times we had more people outside than we usually have inside. Then the summer rolled through, then come the fall, weather started getting cooler, less and less, fewer and fewer people were sitting outside. And then we had the promise that people were going to be able to come inside. And we had about a month of that. And then Governor Cuomo shut down our indoor seating. And then we were in free fall. So the last few months, we pretty much were bleeding out, because the deliveries were down. Outdoor seating was not almost non-existent. Indoor seating was completely shut down. And then our distributor basically threw in the towel because of COVID, because they dealt mostly with kegs, and they had no customers to distribute to. But then now the weather's changing. We have people sitting in the tap room right now. We have people outside. There's a comedy show. About a month and a half ago, another distributor came out of the woodwork out of nowhere, and they're actually doing better numbers than our old distributor did. So in the past 5 weeks, we pushed out over 150 cases of beer, and they're going to accounts all over that we never had access to. And interesting, I got a text message from the distributor today asking if we'd be interested in sending beer to Finland. So here we are, riding it out.
What's the supermarket in Long Island that you're in now?
There's a couple now.
Yeah.
There's a Total Wine. They're starting back up. We had Total Wine for a while. Now we're going back into Total Wine. Total Wine was with the previous distributor. Now we're reestablishing with Total Wine. This other distributor, I think in Ronkonkoma.
Okay.
And then I think in a Thrifty Beverage. I'm not sure where they are. So we, for a long time, we didn't even have a presence on Long Island. Now we do. Yeah.
So you involve you have kids. Do you involve the kids in the growing process at all? How do they react to this whole idea of doing this?
Yeah. All right. So the question is, if my kids are involved, they've been in the mix since they were 4. The twins were 4. My older daughter was 6. They watched me build the brewery. Oh yeah. And my daughter actually did the artwork for Bone Orchard. So now they're getting involved. Now they're becoming teenagers. So it's I can get them involved with some stuff, but not the way they used to get involved. But now, if I ask them for something along these lines, they'll usually line up to do it. So, now we're starting to get into can art. It used to be that they used to clean kegs, and I'm hoping.
Great can art there.
Yeah, thank you. And then, everything has a story with this brewery. This we have between everything in here. If you guys come, and we really do appreciate you supporting this fundraiser. But if you ever come to the tap room, we'll treat you right. We're known for that. If you Google Bridge and Tunnel, and we don't even ask people to do reviews, but we have very high reviews, much higher than a lot of breweries. And there's always, whenever they leave comments, it's always about, the community that we build here in the tap room. You know, that's
It
what
starts at the Mug Club.
That's
It
right. We have our Mug Club. That's how I met Mike. So you know, it's just how we are here. And
you'll always leave here with another friend, somebody that you didn't know. You know, you could come in here alone, as long as you're open and willing to be yourself and talk to somebody. It's an accepting community.
Yeah.
It's not like any other place I've been to.
Yeah, big time, big time. Yeah, we're like Cheers. Yeah, we got, particularly because we have a whole lot of characters in here. And like Cheers said, everybody was a character.
Yeah.
That's yeah. We can everybody. It's ridiculous.
Well, and Rich's wife Lisa is co-owner, and
Lisa.
she's here. Lisa, come on in.
Just come in and show your face. Come here. Yeah.
So it was really Rich and Lisa that did this.
That's just come in. All right, that's my wife. We built this together. So
and
we're doing our best.
Rich is pretty humble, but he was one of the first in the craft beer community in New York. There are a few that are icons in the community, and you've got Brooklyn Brewery, which has gone international. Right. Kelso is another one that was really started things. You'll see a clip later on where the head brewer from Kelso created an award for the craft brewing community every year, and it's given by craft brewers to the best, most innovative craft brewer. Call it the Rupert Cup. And just so happened the year that Eric was looking at the movie, to do the movie, Rich and Lisa won the Rupert Cup. And Rich has also got some other beers that have won New York State awards. And so besides being a community place and a friendly place, he makes damn good beer. I remind him that all the time, that I'm not just here because this place is good. Yeah, I mean, I could go a lot of different places for beer, but this is a really good place.
We do it all in-house, so it's, like we have that control. We didn't this wasn't a business model, start a brewery, hire a brewer. I've been brewing it's going on now 19 years. So that's why we can do what we do. Now we're getting into cider. I have a passion for cider as well. We do really good kombucha. Trying to convince my distributor to take the cider, but and that's what we want to do upstate. We want to make the cider house upstate, brewing down here, cross paths. But anyway, if you guys ever get a chance to come out, we'd love to have you in our tap room, hook you up with a couple of pints, and tell you about everything in here. You can't really see the space, but I built every last aspect of the space myself. I can tell you a story about everything in here.
This used to be like an old garage or something?
It was my landlord at one time had it as a knitting factory. It was a knitting shop because there was a lot of knitting in the neighborhood. Then at one time, and then after that, the business went out of business after 20. I think he had it for 20 years, and then it was a metal shop at one point. But
So how did you start in the garage?
Yeah.
When you started in Maspeth in your garage, now I understood what happened was people would actually come to your house thinking that it was a real brewery. And so at some point, Lisa kicked you out, basically.
Yeah, well,
They published your address in the newspaper.
Did they really? Wow.
Yeah, and it was also, we started it because it was really we just been following this path. We started making beer. We got a hand. Back then, it was very easy to get wholesale accounts because we were technically the second brewery in Queens to open up within this recent wave, which was, there hasn't been a wave in Queens for like probably 50 years of beer in Queens.
Okay.
And so we were technically the second. The first brewery opened up 2 months before us. You want to come behind? All right, cool.
The issue here, by the way, is this is a working tap room, and the bathroom is right there.
It's right there. Yeah. So
thanks, Lisa.
Yeah. I don't know what we were saying.
I guess how you started. How do you go from a 5-gallon?
Yeah.
And I like to brew at home. And a little 1-gallon, 2-gallon system. I'm just now upgrading to 5, although it's hard being in an apartment in New York City. But I'm really curious how you go from a 5-gallon system to a 300-gallon system.
Yeah. It's just like, step by step,
Like, he makes it sound easy, right?
You do that. Every step is uncomfortable, but you take that step, Like I used to make 2.5-gallon batches. We lived in apartments, lived in Woodside, and was 2.5 gallon batches. Then I upgraded to 4 gallon because it was only, I could only fit 4 gallons in my boil kettle, and we couldn't, you know, store a bigger pot.
But this was before
And then-
YouTube even. I mean, you know,
yeah, books. Yeah, just books.
like
you know?
paper?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and taking notes. And then, but actually it's funny, we built the 50-gallon system and I had never tested it. So the first time that we rolled the first batch out, like it was an untested run, and it took 16 hours to finally get to the end. And like I had broken a water pipe in the house actually. Yeah, and then it was a complete disaster. But after the first year of people, like we got written up in like, you know, started getting articles written about us, and then people were like, we were getting good reviews online.
Right.
And then it was like, we could do something with this. And then it took us 2 years to finally end up here, you know, but after the first year, we started looking. But the equipment was self-made, self-built. It was a direct fire system, so there was like an element of danger. And at one point, I caused an explosion in the garage. And that's when I was really like...
What do you mean direct fire system as opposed to like what you have now?
Now it's a steam system. So it's a boiler that produces steam. Steam goes into the kettles, and then it heats, and then the steam heats the kettles up. Direct fire is like turning on your gas oven.
Okay.
Except it was a 200,000 BTU burner and a propane tank outside the garage, and a downdraft that came down the flue, and I would always have to watch that the downdraft wouldn't blow the flame out. It was total crazy. I mean, I kind of went for it at that time, you know, and when I caused the explosion, my biggest concern was that a neighbor, because I used to start brew sessions at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I was concerned that like a neighbor was going to call the police or the fire department. And if the fire department came in, we would have been done.
Right.
But I hustled out of there.
Now some of his best Mug Club members are firemen, so we do everything safe.
Yeah. And they come in and they give us suggestions. Don't, you know, clear the path, make sure the exit's clear, you know. Yeah.
So if you were to give it, somebody wanted to ask you advice about starting out, what would you say?
You come around this way. Yeah. The question is the advice for starting out. I'd say my best advice is, I mean, the way that we do stuff, and it's showcased in the documentary because we're one of the few breweries that actually lives this, but learn it from the inside out. Start small on anything you want. Learn how to do it yourself. Don't contract work out. Don't ask other people to do it for you. If you don't know how to do it, learn how to do it. Figure it out. From whether it's building on a collection of yard sale tools or cobbling together a brewing system from stuff that you gather from Craigslist because you don't want to drop the money on it or whatever. Build it yourself. Learn it from the inside out. And then if you're doing a gallon batch or a 5-gallon batch, then step it up and step into that zone of discomfort and just keep taking those steps. We take those steps every week is one more step toward something that feels like we're going out on a limb. Even this weekend, this coming Saturday, there's a gym over in Astoria that went out of business, and I'm in my space upstate. I have to build 2 bathrooms. So a guy, I offered to trade him beer for 4 sinks, 4 toilets, a whole bunch of mats, some doors, and I'm going to drive over there with my pickup truck, and we're going to load it up on Saturday afternoon, and then possibly Sunday. I might have to go up, road trip up, and offload, and that's going to be what we're going to build our bathrooms with.
Like you said, everything here has a story. Every piece of furniture that we sit in, Rich has built from reclaimed wood from one place or another.
Or I grabbed it from some place or another. I found this one across the street. See the lions?
Yeah.
People love this. This was my mother's rocking chair right here. My mother's rocking chair, going back 50 years. This thing's like over 50 years old.
All right, Rich, we're gonna take it back to Valerie right now. When you guys come back to the tap room, we're gonna take you back and take a quick look at some of the equipment that Rich has put together to brew the beer on. Then we're going to open some of these beers, enjoy them with you, and maybe he'll let me eat some of the food. Thanks, Val.
Let me smile. I can see why there's so much passion and so much goodness in your beer. You put your soul into it. So thank you for that. Now that you know that I can shout and that I'm a poor director, I'd like to pause the beer talk for a minute and hear about the real reason that we're here tonight. Katie Schaefer, that's an appropriate name for a night like tonight, is the Long Island Executive Director of the American Cancer Society, and the main reason that I have been a volunteer for so long. You too, Marie, I know you're out there. Thank you. Katie is going to share with us some of the impact COVID-19 has had on cancer research and why our fundraising is so important. Thank you for all you do, Katie.
Thank you so much, Val, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And I have to say, as a born and raised upstate girl, I am so excited to hear that you are expanding to the upstate area, and I will be the first to join with my family. But I want to say thank you again to Val, our board chair for Long Island, as well as all of our board of advisors for helping to put tonight together. It really was an amazing effort led by Val with the direction of our area board to challenge us, and we love a good challenge. Also to Bridge and Tunnel Brewery for sharing some amazing just stories with us so far, and I'm excited to taste all these delicious beers. And also, Val did mention this man behind the mirror, Victor Labazetta, who's dedicating his time and energy to make tonight so possible and producing a safe and fun event for us. But more importantly, I want to thank every single one of you who's joining us, because by joining us today, you are supporting the American Cancer Society and what the American Cancer Society stands for. By being here, you are one of our army of volunteers. That is truly what makes up what the American Cancer Society is and does. We started off over 100 years ago with a group of women knocking on doors and making a difference, saying that we should be talking about cancer. And to this day, by you listening and being a part of today, this afternoon, you are now part of that army of volunteers, and you can spread the word about how we can fight cancer together. So the funds raised here tonight will fulfill the mission of the American Cancer Society to save lives and celebrate lives and lead the fight to a world without cancer. In fact, a report just came out recently and shared that there has been a 32% decline in cancer-related deaths since 1991. This is directly because we are catching cancer early. We are educating the public about what they need to do to live a healthy lifestyle, and we are generating life-saving breakthroughs with our research programs. I'm so proud to be a part of the American Cancer Society team, not just as staff, but as a 15-year volunteer myself, to say that we are the #1 funder of cancer research besides the United States government. That is a large responsibility to bear, and we are proud to bear it. Also, something that we are so proud of is to make sure that people have access to equitable care, making sure that people can get to their cancer treatments, that they know that they should be going to those cancer treatments, and that those cancer treatments are available in their communities. Like everyone, like the Bridge and Tunnel just talked about, 2020 was an extremely challenging year for so many because of the pandemic, and it caused us to have to be innovative and flexible, and we had to pivot. Our cancer research was put on such a pause at that moment. We were at risk for not being able to fulfill our cancer research promises and commitments, and we were not able to take on any more. I am happy to say that we made our forecast and were able to fulfill our promises, but there were things left on the table that we couldn't fund. And that means that those breakthroughs may not happen. That's because the pandemic hit us so intensely. Today, we can say that We're moving forward. We're being innovative. We're doing things like we are tonight, having fun together in a safe way, tasting beer, and raising money for that life-saving research, those future breakthroughs, and a world of hope. The American Cancer Society needs you to understand that you should be getting your cancer treatments. You should be getting your cancer screenings, and you should be telling your loved ones who are eligible for cancer screenings that they should be going out and getting them. You are all cancer warriors, and thank you so much for taking part in this. And if you have any questions or need any resources, please reach out to the American Cancer Society. We are here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we will be here for you. Please reach out to us at cancer.org or at 1-800-227-2345. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And Val, back to you.
Thanks so much, Katie. It's always a pleasure working with you, and you remind me of why it's so important to continue volunteering, as well as in the importance of getting screened. I can't say it enough because, you know, you work on the front end. I work on the back end of when it's too late and we're taking care of patients who have already been diagnosed. It's so important that people are diagnosed early so that those treatments and those options are more open and more available for everybody. So thank you for the continued work that you do. And, you know, I'm still beside you and I'll stay beside you and we'll keep working together. So we're going to listen to a little bit of music while you guys go get your cups and your beers, and we're going to be ready for some tasting in a minute. It always makes me want to dance. Thank you, Tom, for tickling those ivories and playing such soulful music. So now let's drink from a really big cup. The Rupert's Cup is an annual celebration of craft beer in New York City, and it's awarded during Beer Week. Let's watch what happened in 2017, just 2 years after opening Bridge and Tunnel.
So the Rupert's Cup is it's a reconditioned 5-gallon beer keg. We chopped the stem out, we topped the top off, took the stem out, welded a handle on the side. It's an old AV keg. It was the best use of Anheuser-Busch products that I could think of. Let's make a mug out of it. And it's actually, it holds liquid 5-gallon stainless steel beer mug. As usual, 3 finalists. A big write-in finalist was Other Half. Not too shocking, right? One of them was Cody Island. Cody Island had a tremendous amount of votes, and one of them was Bridge and Tunnel. And if anybody's kind of getting the theme here, Bridge and Tunnel won the Rupert's Cup. So congratulations, one of the smallest breweries in the city. Yeah. There you go. Come on here. People's Choice favorite brewery in New York City brewery. If you haven't been out there, if you haven't had his beer, he's got a beer on tap here. This guy is a cobbled together, like just bootstrap, beautiful brewery, and he's been coveting this cup for a couple years, so congratulations.
You can make this as a victory for all of us, all right? For all the New York City breweries, all the New York State breweries, all the breweries everywhere that are hustling and trying to make ends meet and trying to gain, all right? I just want to say, let's have a long future, okay? Let's make it every year. Let's achieve our dreams. Let's stick together. Let's move forward. Awesome. Okay? So it's our victory, all right?
When you grow up, do you want to be a brewer?
Yeah.
Why?
What? Because when you clean kegs, it's really fun. And I'm like the best one that does it.
We are working on our audio problems. How about we get closer to the computer? Rich can be behind the computer showing us the vats behind him. As we fix our technical difficulties, you can see the vats behind Rich, and those are all homemade. Nothing was pre-configured. This was the risk we took with moving the computer equipment back into the processing area.
Okay.
All right, we're going to see if they can refresh and get reconnected to us. But I can tell you that I am enjoying my Bone Orchard, and it's my favorite. That's the vanilla porter.
Okay. All right.
We're going to come back and see.
How about now, Rich?
Maybe they're
Hey,
making some of that
can you all hear
now.
me?
And I think
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. All right.
So how was it to win the cup?
Oh, all right. So the question on winning the cup. It was a good feeling. We really didn't expect to win. It was it was like a popular vote. So people that participated in New York City Beer Week, which we do every year,
they voted for who their favorite brewery was, and I very passively put out on our Instagram page, I said, wow, the Rupert's Cup is, we're up for, another vote for the Rupert's Cup. Wouldn't it be cool if Bridge and Tunnel won Dare to Dream? And our customers here just, I didn't, that's all I said in one text. And they went crazy voting. They voted, they got, it just went out like wildfire. And then we won. And it was, and it was at a time when we were, we're one of the smallest. If you listen closely to that clip when you guys watch that movie, Kelly Taylor with Kelso Brewery, who created the Rupert's Cup, he said, and you have to listen closely, but he says, yeah, Rich, Bridge and Tunnel, one of the smallest breweries in New York City. So we're still that brewery. We're still one of the smallest, definitely one of the scrappiest. And for us to win an award like that, it was, it put wind in our sails, and we were able to hold on to that cup for a year here in the tap room. And it was like, it was almost to the benefit of our customers, like our we like to say our patrons, our pals. I mean, they were parading around with the cup, for that year. For the most part, it was mostly them, and it was great.
Like the Stanley Cup or something.
Yeah, it was like the Stanley Cup for us,
A lot of people are asking.
And we're taking some questions.
Bridge and Tunnel?
Okay, interesting. Why did we name the brewery Bridge and Tunnel? And some of you might know that Bridge and Tunnel it could be perceived as a put down. All right, it's all like Bridge and Tunnel people, right? And when I was a kid growing up, in the outer boroughs, at that time there was you really didn't hang out in Queens or Brooklyn. You hung out in Manhattan, and I was hanging out in Manhattan from when I was 14, and that's when I heard that term, people labeling us the Bridge and Tunnel kids. So it became a thing where, as I got older, I would go to certain places with my friends, and we would roll in with a little bit of an attitude saying, okay, if we're going to be the Bridge and Tunnel kids, you're going to know that we're here. And so we would go in and, try to get a phone number of somebody else's girlfriend or whatever we would do. We would carry on. And I said, even back then, I said in my head, if I ever have a business, I'm going to name it Bridge and Tunnel for us outer borough kids. And when people come into the tap room now, the definition has changed, because now it's cool to be in Queens and Brooklyn. Queens and Brooklyn, in some respects, are cooler than Manhattan. So when people then come to the tap room and they ask me that question, I'll tell the story that I just told you, and often the response that I get is, wow, I didn't know that. I just thought you were from New Jersey.
Okay, so we're getting short on time. We got to move along a little bit. Is there any way you could show us like the process?
Yeah, sure. So,
move back to the tasting?
yeah. So these kettles behind us here, these are the steam kettles. These are steam jacketed kettles. They were not built originally for brewing. They were actually pulled out of a food processing plant. And so they have a couple of small challenges that we have to get around when we're brewing with them, but they work beautifully. And they're actually vintage, old heavy duty stainless steel. One of them was made in 1973. It's like super, super strong. We have another tank over here. The system itself is mostly like a dairy tank system. So if you see this elongated tank here, that's where the grains actually go, and it's mixed with water. The grains are crushed, so it actually becomes almost like oatmeal. And it's a 400-gallon capacity, and in that tank, we mix and create what's called the mash, and from the mash is where you then extract the sugar water, the sugars that are in the grains themselves, and it becomes almost like a huge vessel that functions almost like a tea bag. And that's where all the extraction happens. We pump out from that mash tun into this kettle right here on the end, the one behind me, all right? And that's our boil kettle. The one in the middle is, we call it, it's basically a hot water tank. The middle one is a hot water tank because you need different periods of hot water for different processes. The one at the far end is actually not functioning right now. I had plans for that and they never took off yet. But now that we have another distributor and things are scaling up, we're going to use that as like a holding tank for the hot water. And what's interesting about this system, and it's actually built, and you can't find systems like this built anywhere. It's a system that's built as if it's a brewery that's 500 years old. Because back then they had kettles that didn't have the control over steel, so they had to make smaller tanks. So they would have a big wooden tank, kind of like the mash tun, that was where they did their mash, and it was made out of wood. But the boil kettle has to be heated, has to be metal. So they would have multiple smaller boil kettles. So what we could potentially do here, both of these tanks function identically. So what we could actually do, some breweries do double batches where after one is done, they come right behind it and they do a second one. Here, we could do a tandem batch where we could literally do 2 separate batches at the same time in 2 kettles that are functioning exactly the same simultaneously.
Would you need a second mash tun to do that?
No, we wouldn't. If we had, we wouldn't need a second mash tun. Okay. We used to do it like that. Yeah. So
So then, from the boil kettle, what happens once the sugar water is extracted from the mash tun? How does it goes into the boil kettle?
So after it goes into the boil kettle, and depending on the style, we boil it anywhere from 15 minutes if we want a hazy IPA, up to an hour and a half if we want a more traditional beer where we're trying to extract the bitterness from the hops. And you extract the bitterness by boiling at least for an hour. So that's one of the main reasons why you boil. Other reasons is the hops actually act as a clarifying agent, and you need to get there's different chemical reactions that happen the longer that you boil, and particularly it leans into the clarity of the beer, the actual clearness of the beer when it's a finished product. After you finish with the boil, it gets crash cooled, and we have a plate chiller that collides the hot beer, and it's not actually called beer, it's called wort before it's fermented, and it crashes the hot wort with cold water. And so the system actually works phenomenal in the wintertime when the groundwater is colder. So like we use less water in the winter to crash cool. And then the water, then you have a byproduct of water, which we then regather in our middle kettle. And then we use that water for different functions during the week, like cleaning kegs. We do heat kill, different cleaning functions on the fermenters. And behind us are all the fermenters that we use. And we have couple of traditional fermenters. We have a couple of fermenters. Everything is stainless steel, but we have a couple of fermenters that are they're actually formerly dairy tanks. They came off of farms that I repurposed, and it's a technique that a lot of breweries back in like the 90s did out in the Midwest, because they had all this access to dairy equipment, and some very successful breweries started as dairy tank systems, and we're still a dairy tank system, but we produce, we have it dialed in so well that we're producing pretty good beer on a 600-gallon horizontal tank. There's 2 of them right there, and actually 3. We have 3 kettles, 3 tanks, fermenters along the fence line that were at one time used by a maple producer. So,
hey, Rich, as a home brewer, you find one of the most important things is sanitizing. Every step you take, sanitize. Why is that so important, and particularly in a big batch system like
yeah. All right. So Mike just asked, why is sanitation so important? So sanitation is important because beer is actually very susceptible to, it's very fermentable, put it to you that way. So it could become the food for some other kind of yeast or even bacteria that you didn't necessarily intend. And there's not really a physical danger in that. There's just the issue where you could create flavor profiles that you weren't intending. Like actually at one time early on, we had a wild yeast running around in our system. And every beer that we were producing, and probably for 7 beers consistently, one after another, came out tasting like a Belgian farmhouse ale. And they tasted good, but you can't make 7 batches of the same beer. So that's why we had to, change some of our techniques. Okay.
So Rich, which beer do you think we should start with? What's the?
All right, so we're being directed to drink some beer. I guess you can't argue with that. So I like our Get In, Shut Up, Hold On New York IPA. It's actually a New England style IPA, but of course here at Bridge and Tunnel, we like to be jerks when we can, and we threw New York bagels into the mix just so we can stick a thumb in the eye of the illustrious New England style IPA and call it a New York IPA. The description on the side of the can actually spells that out, that we threw a wrench in the works and on and on. But so it's a hazy New England style IPA that is there's not a lot of hops on the back end, which is typical to the style, but it's more hoppy on the front end. So and actually it's supposed to be, it's an interesting style because traditional IPAs that were made in they literally made in India, an India Pale Ale, they were the profile for those were that they were super bitter on the back end, and they were clear, and they were like, those are the two things. So they are New England style. We turned the whole style in the United States, turn everything upside down. Now it's a hazy IPA. It's not clear on purpose, and it's not bitter on the back end, but it's bitter on it's hoppy, like in terms of like floral notes, tropical fruit notes on the front end.
You can actually smell it.
Yeah.
You can smell those.
And that's from dry hopping. That's what actually, after it's fermented, then you throw in raw hops for about 7 days.
Right into the fermenter?
Right into the fermenter. And Mike's making it like he doesn't know. He sees us doing it every Friday. And if you guys are having it at home, I think we used Citra hops, Mosaic, Azeka. There's a lot of different hops now that are actually, they're highly controlled, and some of them are actually coming out of New Zealand, but it's a whole host of different hop varieties that were not around when I first started homebrewing.
Did you ever try to grow hops yourself? I mean, that's another thing. Homebrewers, hops are plants that take a few years to mature, and they grow 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
So what about, sorry, because we're time constraints.
Yeah.
What about somebody that likes like a dark beer? What do you have, like porter?
Oh, we specialize in dark beers, actually. In fact, we launched the brewery with a stout when we first started, and the name of that beer was Old Gilmartin. It was actually named after my mom, and there's a picture of my mom on the can. She had actually passed away a year before we actually launched the brewery, and she's kind of carried the brewery. She's been kind of like I like to think she's been our guardian angel the whole way through. But that beer actually took silver medal a couple of years back at a competition out of the governor's office in New York State. So that was kind of a cool achievement. It was the first time we ever submitted anything to any event, and we took silver medal. And it goes great. This particular beer, it's a vanilla porter. It goes really good with Oreos. So my wife lined up all this stuff. I'm glad you guys picked this one because I've been eyeballing these Oreos for like the whole time. But yeah, this is a vanilla porter. We're known for having stouts and porters. We do IPAs, but we throw a wide net and do a lot of different styles. But we're known for our stouts and our porters. In fact, in the summertime, a lot of breweries, they don't do stouts or porters in the summertime because they like the stereotype is that it's so heavy. And I don't understand that because people are eating like, you know, grilled meat in the summertime. I can't think of anything heavier than that. You know, this is like, you know, no matter what, you're still gonna quench your thirst.
You can really smell the vanilla in this. It just
Yeah.
comes right to the top.
Yeah, this is a robust porter recipe conditioned with Madagascar vanilla beans.
But it's not sweet.
No,
You get a
'cause
lot of stouts that are like super sweet.
Well, this would be a porter, so it's drier, and thinner mouthfeel. So we try to go with the style profile. Robust porter. It has more back end bitterness, about 40 IBUs, which is the measurement for the hops. If you have our milk stout there, you know, on the flip side, the milk stout is super thick, right?
Mhm.
And
creamy.
yeah, creamy, sweet. But this is drier, and it allows the vanilla to come a little forward too, you know.
We're pretty much out of time, so instead of tasting the next two, if you can at least just talk about what they are and what they
Sure.
were paired with.
Okay.
And then that'll probably be it.
Yeah. All right. So then we have this other one, which is this was a fun beer, and we're circling back around tomorrow to get another batch of this because our distributor, this was their best seller, the Batty Bat Sour Cat, and this beer, it's a crisp, tart sour. It pairs with really like any kind of like savory meat or different cheeses. It's a nice beer, you know, and it pairs with a lot of different stuff.
And how do you make the sour? How is that made? Why is it sour?
It's basically a lactobacillus fermentation, which produces, it's the same lactobacillus that's in your yogurt. And if you ever have like the tartness of yogurt, you know, that's what's in this beer. And if we had more time, I could tell you some crazy stories about our adventures in making sours, because you have to be very careful, especially with a lighter beer like this. If we make a sour porter, and darker grains are very acidic, right? Which is good for making a sour. Lighter grains, this is a light beer, it's not acidic. So that means that if it's in a position where it could be attacked by a different bacteria that's similar to lactobacillus but not the same, and it would end up creating a flavor profile and an aroma similar to baby vomit. So one time, early on, we made a 200-gallon batch that came out like that. And at the end, you have to boil it to kill the bacteria. It was called a kettle sour. And I filled this whole place up with this stink that to this day, I'm still in trouble with my landlord. Still. And then we have you guys have a different label, I believe, because we just changed the label. But this is the Mango New England IPA. What you guys have, this one is called Glass House. The one that you have is called Trampolama. Now, we could be silly with labels, but what I also like is I like to tell stories with labels. And for me to be able to get my distributor to take it and succeed, we had to get a little silly, so we had to change the label. But the original label, Glass House, actually tells the story, and we end up hijacking the cans and tell the stories on the side of the cans. But this story is about, if anybody remembers, all the empty tenement buildings down in the Lower East Side back in the 70s and the 80s, and then people going into those buildings and living in those buildings. And then during the Giuliani administration, he started to sell those buildings to those tenants for $1. So it's a part of New York City history that a lot of people are clueless about, because if you go down there now, the whole area is gentrified. So you could walk and you don't even recognize the neighborhood as being that at one time. So we tell that story on the side of the can. A lot of people appreciate that story. Anyway, the style itself, this is also a New England style IPA conditioned with mango. I couldn't say with an authority of what it would pair with because we're going a little outside of the box with the style. But me and my wife, we pair it with cheese, any kind of cheese and crackers, but it's a different flavor profile.
It's also a big hit here.
Yeah,
people love that beer.
Yeah,
It's a great beer.
right now it's our one of the two best sellers that we have. That particular beer.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Your beers are awesome. I personally have had the milk stout and the vanilla porter. So
awesome.
And none of you guys at home can see Tim or his wife Denise, but it's also Tim's birthday, so wish him well.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
We'll have a beer for you. Thanks. And a cookie.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Check the bell.
I'm even more loyal to you now, Rich. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight, for supporting ACS and Bridge and Tunnel. Thank you again to Rich and Lisa for hosting us and giving us a look into your world, and Michael for introducing us and helping to make it happen. Thank you, Katie, for your relentless pursuit of the next breakthrough for cancer treatment. Thanks, Tom, for making beautiful music. And Tim, happy birthday. Have a beer on me. Victor, my darling, you rock my world and I love you. Thank you for making us all look fabulous. All the cursing and the hair loss was worth it. Everyone, drink responsibly and be careful on the commute to the living room. Stay safe, wash your hands, and when you can, get vaccinated. Thank you and good night.